SARS has exceeded its preliminary tax collection for a second consecutive year. The Revenue Service collected a total of 1.56 trillion rand in the fiscal year through March the 31st, 2022. Edward Kisvetter, the commissioner, says the latest tax collection is standing at little over 16 billion rand, more than the projected in the February budget, and represents a 25% increase from the prior fiscal year. Jashwin Baijoo is on the line with us now, legal manager for Africa Tax and Compliance at Tax Consulting SA. Very good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so very much for being with us. Essentially, SARS is saying that they've collected a lot more money than had hoped. And where exactly is this money coming from?
So that's correct. I mean, SARS collected around 16.7 billion more than projected in last year's February budget speech. And this basically shows roughly a 25% increase from the prior fiscal year. How this has come about is very much by virtue of SARS under strong leadership and having increased the pressure from the collection side, with final demands going out and SARS actioning those final demands after the 10-day period has lapsed, implementing those collection measures, making third-party appointments, attaching funds from taxpayers' bank accounts, and often sending out the sheriff or taking a judgment against that taxpayer and blacklisting them.
Okay, so I suppose the taxman playing hardball, and do you think that this is paying off, that, this sort of measures that's being imposed with penalties is going to ensure greater compliance among taxpayers?
So, yes, it will ensure greater compliance, and at the same time, on the flip side, in the last fiscal period, SARS has paid out a record high of refunds to taxpayers, for the highest in the last about 25 years. And that just shows that the high rate of collection, yes, SARS is being exceptionally aggressive with non-compliant taxpayers, but for those compliant taxpayers, SARS are making it easier and more efficient for those guys to obtain their refunds, especially pertaining to VAT, which is the highest contributor to refunds.
Okay, and so when we understand where this money is coming from, are we looking largely at corporate income tax? Though I'm looking at it about 21% of the total take. What does this mean? That it's personal income tax that is the rest of that windfall that SARS is experiencing at the moment?
So, oddly enough, a large portion of it comes from specialized audits, and we're talking billions. So this speaks to your lifestyle audit, not necessarily on a corporate entity or a specific individual, but rather on individuals who are living beyond their means. And it's clearly evidence on the basis of third-party data that these individuals are, in essence, compliance risks and sometimes even exhibiting criminal behavior. From these, SARS has brought in billions, literally billions, over the last fiscal period, just off the back of lifestyle audits. I mean, at SARS's 25th anniversary, Kisvetter noted specialized auditors, they netted 25 billion from these lifestyle audits.
Which means that there are some people with some very deep pockets, and there is money somewhere in the economy that's being either hoarded, hidden, or I don't know how I feel about this, because I'm sure speaking to those people, they feel that, they already part of a very low, base of people that contribute tax in this country, and would be aggrieved to part with some of their money. But the reality is the fact that SARS had been able to recover this sort of money means that there is certainly money inside the economy.
Yes, so that is correct. But another concern that must be brought to light, obviously, is, as you know, the South African tax regime is very much residency-based. Therefore, South African residents are taxed on their worldwide income. However, what we are starting to see is your high net worth and your ultra high net worth are leaving South Africa and ceasing their tax residency, which leads to an even further reducing tax base in the country. I mean, over the last fiscal period, whereas the rest of the world saw an increase in ultra high net worth individuals, South Africa saw a 7% decrease in a single fiscal period.
So what does that mean? I mean, are you saying that they because of this sort of hard-eating approach to collect this money, there are individuals that are high net worth individuals that may well be feeling that they need to give up their residency, go live elsewhere, safeguard some of their monies and their earnings, and the end result is less money into the fiscus, which requires what sort of balancing act?
So that's the thing with the balancing act. As you mentioned, we've already got a reasonably small tax base contributing towards the country's economy. Now, what happens in terms of a balancing act is the smaller that base gets in terms of the number of individuals contributing, the more aggressive the revenue authority and the government become in terms of collecting from those few individuals that are left, which has a knock-on effect of forcing more out and then increasing collections and forcing more out and increasing collections and forcing more out. At the end of the day, in order to get that balancing act, a scaled tax system is not the most effective. If you think about it, in essence, you're being taxed higher the more you earn. You are being essentially punished for your hard work by paying additional taxes. Whereas other countries, such as the US, do not work that way in any way. They have different tax incentives. The higher you earn, the more incentives you qualify for.
Which, I mean, any reasonable person would feel that way, that the harder you work, let's say you get a promotion at work, your salary increases, but the reality is that a big portion of that salary is going towards the tax man, and then you still feel aggrieved about the fact that you have to drive through potholes and a whole lot of other issues, and feel that the money is not being spent appropriately because, there's such a high theme of corruption within government. And so it's the sort of thing that I think makes the tax base, a bit jittery about wanting to pay taxes, as it were. But before I do let you go, I just quickly want to take a look at where some of the money did come from. Of course, there being corporate tax, and the biggest contributor there would be the mineral industry, particularly mining. What do you put this down to? Is it the fact that the commodities have begun to boom once again, and as it were, what this means is an extra plug-in of some capital into the fiscus?
Yeah, so as you're aware, there was a massive commodities boom, and at the time of the boom, the exchange rate was at a reasonable stability on our side. So even based on the Bloomberg reports, mining boom was great, but where the majority comes from, 21% comes from corporate income tax, personal income tax accounts for 36%. So from your personal income tax, your VAT, and your corporate tax, which are really your three heavy-hitting taxes in South Africa, personal income tax accounts for 36% of that revenue collection. And this goes back to the lifestyle audits that we mentioned earlier, and how those can actually serve to uncover non-compliance and even possible fraud, whereby further sanctions and further collection measures, more drastic collection measures, may be imposed on non-compliant taxpayers.
Mm-hmm. And so, that is certainly, I suppose, if you're speaking to SARS, they're happy with the windfall. But the reality is here that I think, beneath all of this, what appears to be great news, the fact that Kisvetter appears to definitely demonstrate his leadership in this regard. The reality is that there are some underlying issues that needs further discussion, and a discussion that we will continue to have here on Radio 786. Thank you, Jashwin Baijoo, for coming on, a legal manager for Africa Tax and Compliance at Tax Consulting SA.